So this video is going to continue on that first tutorial of Instrument Rack Review Part 1, and I had ended that talking about two different instruments, maybe three, that I wanted to make into a rack to finish this session view sketch that will be used as an intro element and will give me an opportunity to expand on it in the arrange view. So might as well get started. I want to make this one a little bit shorter than that first one. So I have this absinthe patch called Evil Kitty that I want to turn into a rack. I'm using it as a texture. I was to solo that and we play just a quick preview. So I click on the wrench icon to open the absinthe interface, and what I wanted to show you was that the Perform tab, out of the tabs you interface with Absinthe, the Perform tab is where there's assignments of MIDI controllers to parameters, and Ableton will actually show you most, if not all, of those when you use an instance of Absinthe automatically. Now that doesn't mean that you need to use them all, or you could always add more, delete more. I know I'm maybe not going to be using some of these. I could just delete them before I make it a rack. But what I am going to do is turn it into a rack so that I have a few controls to be expressive with that texture. And I'm going to leave the compressor out of the rack. Again, it's just there. It's helpful in the composition process with easy level management. I'm going to use Command G and turn that absinthe instrument into a rack. And then I know that I want to map the filter cutoff. I know I want to map the grain effect possibly, and the gate is definitely something I want to map, so we'll do that. So map a filter cutoff. I'm going to leave it with where I usually put filters. Gate is an articulation. I'm going to put that down in our later section of macros, and I think that's all that I really wanted to add for now, so we'll just leave that, and I can play it and see what some of the elements are doing. I can play with some things here and decide if I want to use them. Resonance, for example. Let's turn up the resonance. Well, filter cutoff. Yeah, I think I'm going to add some resonance. So map, resonance, boom. I'm not going to bother renaming them because they're all very straightforward right now. I could close this just so that my view is a little bit easier to look at. There's no reason to make this into anything but more than one chain at the moment with that absinthe instrument. So we'll close the chain view and move on with putting some envelopes into that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw them in first, and then because I want to demo, once I put this into the arrange view, I want to demo refining them more, or play a few in. Let's play a few in here in this case. So we had done this in the last tutorial. I'm going to be in the record ready and then use the clip record. And I'm just going to dial a few settings as this plays on my filter cutoff, resonance, and gate. I'm going to use the push controller, but you'll be able to see them moving down there. So. So those elements are in the clip now, and they're going to be based on the movements I made on the push, the cutoff, the filter, resonance, and gate. I'm going to leave them kind of rough and fix them in arrange view because we want to cover those concepts. But just to review, turn that absinthe instrument into a rack, and I have the macros for the rack, and I could always go into the chain and add some other elements and effects, etc. That was covered in part 1. But the second thing I'm going to do is actually turn this lead patch into a rack, because that was something else that I had mentioned. So now a decision to make is whether I want to have the Pong inside the effect, and I think I mean inside the rack. I think I do. I'm going to move the order over and then select the massive instrument and the Pong, and I'm going to Command or Apple G again to get that enabled into a rack. So now I have the device, and you'll notice that this device has both of the components in it. If I minimize the rack, you can see the compressor is still outside of the rack. So what I'm going to want to do is make the macros for this massive patch, and so we'll want to see the device to access. And filter mix is an interesting characteristic. Let's make sure I'm in record ready on this track. So the filter mix, buzzier on one side, and I'm going to use that, but I also want to be able to add a little bit of noise. This will cover a couple concepts, and we've done this in class, so I'll be pretty quick. I'm going to add some noise, but I want to be able to control that. So the noise amp, we can either attach an envelope or we can attach a macro. I'm going to go ahead and attach a macro for now. That'll be easier to draw the automation. So I'm going to drag number 3 to amp, set that modulation depth, and this will be the noise volume. And then there's also going to be probably something we'll want to change with color. Let's try bright noise. Turn up the amp. Compare it to white noise. I like the white noise better, but we're going to want to be able to articulate that color. Now, there's choices between envelopes and LFOs that could be made here. Might be nice to add an envelope to the actual amplitude as well. But so what I'll do is I'll add the envelope here for now so we don't get too distracted. I'm just going to take envelope 2 and map that to the color parameter and let that change the color through a pretty steep range. Give it a slower attack. And there's a decay on that, so it's actually got a little more of an interesting instrument characteristic to it. It dies off naturally. So that's good enough for now, and without the noise. With the noise. So that's enough changes to the instrument to go ahead and make those macros for the swishy lead part. And so let's open up the massive configure. I'm going to put the filter on knob 3, put the filter mix on knob 4, put the noise volume, more of a texture, I'm going to put it on knob 1, and then I want the delay to be controllable as well. So another thing I'll do is just so that I know that's the delay mix instead of just generic dry wet. Let's rename that. Okay. Now the rest of these things I'm not going to automate with the clip like I did with the kitty texture clip. I'll do this automation solely with envelopes in a range so that we can move into that zone faster, and I can tune it to be a proper intro to illustrate some further concepts. I'm going to hit stop twice so we get back to the beginning of the file, and then we're going to go into record into a range and record this scene, and I'm going to do it for about 24 bars. I'm going to cue an empty scene now. Just leave some empty space. So that is now in the arrange view, and of course it's dimmed until we say to return to arrange, and those are the parts. Let me hide this, and what I have coming after this is some stuff that this is going to be the intro for. So let's turn on the envelope editing mode, and you can see all of the envelopes that came in from my clips. Now, one thing I'm going to want to do here is I'm going to want to animate the noise on the swishy lead, and I'm going to fix the arpeggiator here, and just maybe in the process review a few things with automation. So I kind of played this back, and I can hear that I like the arpeggiator on the sustained note of this. Let's just make this a little bit bigger. I like the arpeggiator on the sustained note here, but not really much of anything else. So there's a few ways you can go about changing this. Of course, you can select a range of automation and hit delete. It'll leave you at the last selected node, not a big deal. Click, drag that. If you want to overwrite automation, remember that you need to hold down Shift while moving the automation and it'll overwrite, but you can always drag back to get it back or use undo. So I'm going to use the tool where we can select a range of time, and then that will allow you to take the automation level at a static value, and that's just going to enable the arpeggiator on here. I'll solo this. We can hear what that sounds like. I'd like the arpeggiator to be back on for this last little set of notes as well, just here. Oops. And I won't waste too much more time doing that, so that we can move forward with some other things. But just a reminder, with some automation envelopes while we're here, holding down Shift and then dragging, you can move an automation over an existing one. That's when you drag left or right. And then you can, of course, select areas of automation and delete them, and you can use Option and you can draw a curve. I'll come back to those probably with the noise cut off. What I'm going to do here is wipe this out, and I'm going to duplicate a pattern of square waves. So we'll just put one more in, and then we'll show duplicating some automation envelopes. So the ARP's going to be on here, and I'll zoom back out. Oops, wrong selection. Let's shrink that back up and get back to the zoom I wanted, and to the arpeggiator way back here. Sorry for steering around so much. So that I'm going to select this range and Command D, and we're just copying that automation. One thing I'll fix is turn the arpeggiator on for the duration of its output, just by deleting those nodes. Should do it quick enough. So let's unsolo that. I just want to listen to the end here. Okay, that's going to leave us a nice space to go into this next part. Last thing we'll do is put some envelopes on, let's shrink this, put some envelopes on the noise. We'll shrink Evil, put some envelopes on Evil Kitty. Let's do that. So we can add elements here and choose what they are and delete them. So to specifically animate one particular thing in this instrument rack, and I'll look at the gate, and I'm also going to look at the filter cutoff inside there. So that way you can edit both envelopes at once. So we're going to make this start with no gate. I'm just dragging with Shift, getting rid of some automation. Oops. And then we'll have a heavy gate at this position, and we'll leave the rest as it is, but we'll change the filter cutoff a little bit just to give it some change for the sake of change. Change is good in music. So yeah, I'm just trying to illustrate drawing some envelopes and doing them from scratch on our swishy lead part here. What I'm going to want to do is select the rack itself, and let's make sure we got the delay available, and let's also make sure that we're able to go in and change the noise level. So the noise volume is going to be something else, and I'm also going to do filter mix. Trust me, this will wrap up quickly. So rack and filter mix. So I've got those three elements here, and we're just going to solo the track, and the delay mix is going to be very high at the end. I'm just going to let that really ring out. I'm going to take it down in one part just for fun. The noise volume I won't bring in until, let's say, we have this sustained patch here. I'm going to bring it out a little bit, and then I'll bring the noise back in on the end section. We'll make this part sound a little rougher by automating, oops, let's grab that line by automating the filter mix between a few different things. By rougher, I mean what that filter mix characteristic does. So now we have this section. Let's unsolo this. That wasn't fair. So now we have this section, and it illustrates taking some things from the, let's turn the volume down a bit, taking some sketches from the session view into the arrange view, and then fine-tuning the envelopes the way that you want them. So another thing I'll probably do is I'm going to lift this filter. Of course, you might want to change notes too. So what's going to happen here? All right, let's consolidate this. Hit Command J or right click and say consolidate. So I see all the notes in one clip. Let me make these sustain longer. And then we're going to trim some time, because I've gone through this same process with some other instruments. This one using a reactor instrument called Laser Bass. That's a lot of fun. Started with a patch called Frody and added a lot of changes, and those of course are all macroized here. I have an arpeggiator with some automation, and so that leads to this. But you can see here that to make it a proper kind of drop after such a mellow section, first let's just delete some time. So I'm going to go there, I'm going to say edit and cut time and play the end of this section. And that gets me to where I want to go. Now, these envelopes are solely used so that I get a particular kind of drop there. There's actually, you'll notice, let me get rid of some of these other things here, but that's turned down completely, but the way that I have portamento time on that instrument. So now we have a nice mellow intro into the section. Let's hide this, we can see more of what's going on. So this other section here actually has a lot of automation on the bass elements. And it goes through a few sections of the song, solely by automating those things. Here you can see ARP rate being modded. This is the ARP rate on this bass sound. Filter moving. Filter move up harder. And the reason why I kept both kits, right? Bonzo kit I let play during this section. Candler kit during this other section. That's really more predominantly the Candler kit. So it just gives you a little bit of variation, some of those things around. Last thing I'll say is what we just worked on was kind of a end sequence to a slowdown that I thought would maybe work better as an intro. So that's what was done by putting it into scene view, working on some of those things that come in at the end of the song. But now I have some continuity where the beginning of the track and the end of the track will have some similar elements. And they're different, of course. By similar, I mean they're musically related. So that's it for part 2.